Hi, my name is Richard DeZerga from Microsoft. I get to speak to hundreds of customers about the value of building apps with Office 365. When developing with Office 365, we think that Visual Studio will always provide the premier experience for developers. However, we do promote the fact that you can develop with almost any platform of your choice with our APIs. Now, this is something that I've told thousands of customers, but until recently, it was all a bunch of talk. I hadn't really tried using the Office 365 APIs outside of my comfort zone inside of Visual Studio. So as a weekend challenge, I decided I would try to develop an app in something completely foreign to me and see how easy it was to work with our APIs. So, is Azure AD and the Office 365 APIs really that easy to use outside of Visual Studio? Let's see. So what I did is I decided I would actually try to build an iPhone app. And I know you can build iPhone apps actually in Visual Studio using great tools like Xamarin or Cordova, but I really wanted to take kind of a pure Apple developer approach of this. And so I used XCode and Swift. Now, Swift is Apple's new programming language, and there's not a lot of documentation out there. So with something like Objective-C, you can find several examples of using Objective-C to communicate with Azure, and even in some cases, the Office 365 APIs, but there's really nothing with Swift. And again, that was part of my challenge here. So let's take a look at what I came up with. And I'll come up with the conclusion. Is it really that easy to use our APIs? So let me bring up Xcode really quickly, and I will launch our application. So here's our application, and I'm just going to go ahead and launch it on the iPhone simulator. So it'll take just a second to pull up. And the first thing that it's going to do when it gets into the application is it's going to say, hey, I need to authenticate you. Now, in Office 365, the identity provider is what we call Azure Active Directory. And so that's what you're seeing here is a login to Azure Active Directory. This is similar to what you would see if you were going to something like SharePoint Online. So I'll go ahead and type in a user here, and we'll use Alex D on my tenant, and I will go ahead and put in Alex's super secret password, which I will have to change after this video. So I'll go ahead and say sign in. And now that I've signed in, this is going to go and allow me to start communicating with Office 365. So the first thing it's going to load is all of the different files that are in my OneDrive. So you can see here, these are all the files I have on my OneDrive. And I didn't try to get too fancy with visual. I just did the title or actually the file name and then the date modified. So you can see a list of that here. And now one of the values of the Office 365 APIs is that it provides me endpoints into all the different services that Office 365 delivers. So here I'm going to OneDrive for Business, which is actually SharePoint behind the scenes. But without re-authenticating, my app can communicate with other things. So I could communicate maybe with mail. So in this case, I'm going to go and query all of the mail messages that are in my inbox. And so that's what you see here. You see the sender and then the title of all these different emails that are in my inbox. And then finally, I have one more view in here. So this is a 3-tabbed application on the iPhone, is users. Now, so far I've gone to two completely different sources of data. I've gone to OneDrive for Business and I've gone to Mail in Exchange. In this case, I'm actually going to go against the actual Azure Active Directory. So I'm actually going to go against, they have a graph API where I can go and do directory lookups. So as I start typing a user's name here, I'll just start typing and you can see it starts doing a search based upon what I'm typing. So if I added L, or actually let me add L here, it will go narrow it down to the specific users that match that search that I did. So in this case, I was able to build an application that authenticated against Azure Active Directory. Again, that's the identity provider for Office 365. I was able to communicate with a number of different services within Office 365, including SharePoint Online and Exchange Online, and even went even further to communicate and do directory lookups against Azure Active Directory. And this was actually accomplished over a weekend. I had no prior experience whatsoever to Xcode or Swift or really a Mac for that matter. I had a lot of challenges trying to do copy and paste because it uses the command key instead of control. But ultimately, the conclusion I came up with was that our APIs are incredibly easy to work with. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of code, but I will point out that authenticating was basically just 2 lines of code. So it's basically 2 lines of code. I can use a library called the Active Directory authentication libraries which we provide on a number of different platforms, including iOS and Android. And then ultimately, it's just about making some REST calls into the Office 365 APIs. As long as I can make a REST call and set some header information, I should be good to go. So this really helped me confirm what I evangelize every day, which is our APIs, both Azure and the Office 365 APIs, are incredibly easy to consume, and you can light up your applications today with the functionality that we have within Office 365. Happy coding.